suggestions for changing the wording, but we spent a whole day on it, didn't we, Stephanie? Trying to get the initial set of wording right. So, we could keep arguing about specific wording. The journalists in our midst might be able to have a look at it and see if it needs to, how the statement appears to other people and what impression it can make. But I'll just wait till Kathy comes back before we actually. So we want to have a little bit of discussion, not necessarily on what the statement contains, but what we do with it is one of the things that we wanted to do today when we finish on. But actually, I might just get going. The good thing is we just finish. What I'm doing is the end of the whole session, so probably not worthwhile time. Okay, just while we're waiting for Kathy, what my paper? I'll go back one. Everyone's put together a presentation and an abstract for this workshop. Some were presented in the virtual workshop, some today, some in both. What we're going to then ask everybody to do is to write it up as a paper. It can be a very short paper, and you'll get to resubmit it back to Sprouts. Now, how we deal with those papers is something that we're quite flexible about. We did this once before, and the papers were just reviewed, if you like, or gone through by the committee, so they weren't peer-reviewed or double-blind reviewed or whatever. Now, I think it could be useful to get a bit more feedback this time, but I thought what we might do with the papers is people can submit them, and I guess all of us can also nominate who they'd like to be the sort of feedback person for different papers. So if everybody could maybe look at the papers that were presented and say, I could really comment on that one, and maybe if everyone chose 2 papers, and we can sort out then, and probably we can drag other people in who aren't here to others of the authors to do a bit of, not necessarily strict reviewing, but positive feedback too.
We could do a little survey.
Yes,
a little survey.
So some sort of process like that. So we'll sort of give some guidelines on submitting the papers, and then people can also nominate which papers they'd like to be the feedback people. So we might do a blind review. It might be just a positive process of, so we can call it reviewing for people who need to have reviewed papers. So we're quite happy to work with the system, but also really to be helpful, because most people are saying we want feedback. So we can think of some process.
We'll probably do a survey.
Yes, yeah. So that will happen, and you'll get instructions on how to do that. Okay. Some of my thunder's been also already stolen with this, so I can go through some of these pretty quickly. The first thing I'm going to talk about is, and I think we've discussed this a lot, and how useful information. I mean, you were saying those 2 things about it's multidisciplinary and it's holistic. I really do think this is an opportunity for information systems to break out of its little academic cocoon and get out there and really influence other disciplines, influence practice, influence people who make decisions. And I think we almost have a responsibility to do that, because IS is ideally suited to doing that. So we need to understand, and even if we don't have a common definition for what IS is, I think we need to really think about the discipline. This is an area where the discipline is important. Just one thing I'll mention, I always use information systems IS for the discipline, and information systems with little ILS for a particular artefact or information system, which is not necessarily a technical artefact, it could be associated with technical artefact. So sometimes we get those 2 a little bit mixed up. And so we talk about the responsibility of the IS community, led by SIGGreen, of course. So I'll talk a little bit about SIGGreen and then mention the statement. If I get a chance, I'll have a look at my taxonomy, but that was just one part of this whole where SIGGreen should be going to, and I'll say why that was. Okay, so very quickly, Rick Watson's been a great instigator of SIGGreen and was involved in the drafting of the statement. In fact, he was the one that got out there and started plugging it into digital form. And he talks a lot in his papers about the discipline of IS and what it is. He talks about complex socio-technical artefacts, integrated sets of people, processes, software, information, all the things that we need. But he keeps restating this in his papers, which I think is really good because sometimes we lose track of it. So that's one thing. I often put these two up. The first is from the MISQ official call for papers about what IS is, so knowledge routine and development of IT-based services. Fairly pragmatic, what I would put over on my audit side of my view of the world. And then Alan Lee put this in when he was editor of MISQ. He says that research in information system fields examines more than just the technical system or the social system or even the two side by side, but it investigates the phenomena that emerge when the two interact. I quite like going to the more emergent, unaudited side of the world. So I think we can incorporate all those. And we often, one of the things I've been writing recently about is IS as a federated hypocrisy, which is quite nice. All sorts of themes, multidisciplinary, systemic, most of the things we've been talking about today, I think. So. And I use the word wicked problems. I think that's a term that you talk about a complex system, people look at you funny, but if you talk about a wicked problem, it seems to have an affordance, I think, that it actually gets over the hump of what you're talking about. I like, this is sort of my mantra, if you like. For too long, IS has been relatively insular and inward-looking, and it showed its social and corporate and global responsibilities to apply its knowledge and expertise. I think we're really special and do good things, so we should be out there doing good things. Okay, so that's sort of my preamble. SIGGreen was formed when we looked at a lot of the sustainability fora, both the global fora, the academic fora, and there was very little mention of IT or IS. A little bit in the Stern report, a little bit in the Al Gore stuff, not very much. I mean, people tend to, and I'm going to the Rio Plus Training Conference, and there's very little mention of IT in all of the things they're doing. They're talking about the oceans and systems and environmental systems and so on, but not much mention of IT. And I still think they're missing a whole opportunity there. So we formed a special interest group of the Association for Information Systems to provide a focus for environmentally responsible activities. We have our wiki, which has been proved a very good tool for doing a lot of things. We just anyone can become an editor, just join the wiki and people add bits and pieces to it and we manipulate around, and then we create a new wiki for each of these programs that we have. So I'm sorry about the colour, but we have a particular wiki for the 2012 program, which has been the submission of abstracts, the virtual event, this event, then the follow-on, which will be the Sprouts papers that you submit to Sprouts and a publication. So that's what we call our program of events for the year. So we've got a wiki that just deals with this, but then that's our general wiki where everything ends up. Okay, now I'll just mention the statement, and then I think we can, and I'll talk a little bit about why I've developed the taxonomy because it's related to the statement. So the statement itself is based on the premise that IS professionals have a respect for the environmental scientists and what they tell us is happening, and accept the work published in their journals about what's happening to our planet. So we're the converted, we're the people who agree that there is a responsibility for everybody to look at. And I think probably the environmental systems and what's happening to those, but also the social and economic systems and the government systems and the political systems, all those systems are things that we should be concerned about, and we should look at what people from other disciplines are reporting on those. This is the first part of the statement, and we can have a look in more detail at the wording of it if you're interested, but probably not having got time to do a lot of that. So SIGGreen, the special, we started off with AIS here, but AIS would not come to the party and let us speak on their behalf, so we've pulled back a little bit and saying how SIGGreen
They wouldn't even let us present at a meeting.
Yeah, just a meeting of the board.
Really wanted to bringing us to the board.
Yes, we wanted them to endorse this statement on behalf of IS professionals. But we're doing it ourselves now. So, and the bigger we can grow. So please join SIGGreen, encourage other people to join SIGGreen. It only costs about $10 a year. But if we can get the SIG bigger, that would help as well. So
and network to other cities too.
Yeah, we might get
That's our plan, is to network to other cities.
So SIGGreen, the special interest group, accepts the scientific contention that human activities bear significant responsibility for harmful and detrimental. And we use the word environmental change rather than just climate change because we wanted to look at water and waste and all the other environmental impacts. So the IS community should assume their share of this responsibility, and then it goes on to talk a bit more about all the things that we should be doing. So I'm going to take it as read, but if you're not, go back and you can all get onto the wiki and read it, and we can look at the wording of it. One thing that we looked at, okay, the statement's about 1.5 pages, not very big, and it doesn't say a lot. One of the problems that we as a discipline face is that I don't think people, when you say I'm an information systems professional, people often look at you and they're not sure what that means. That's something that's just IT, that you can fix their hard drive if it goes wrong. Other people in business think of them as business systems and so on. So, I think we've discovered today that the scope of IS is quite broad. I think we know what it is, but a lot of other people don't. So one of the things we need to do is explain what IS is, and in particular what we mean by green IS. We have had discussions about whether we should call ourselves green IS. Some like the word sustainability rather than green, because green has these political connotations. But sustainability has a problem too, because sustainability can mean things that probably we don't cover. It can mean all sorts of other things. So I've just given a talk in Sarajevo to a sustainable development conference there. And I like the word sustainable development rather than just sustainable. Sustainable to me means keeping things as they are. It's rather negative, just sustaining what we've got. Whereas sustainable development sort of implies it's going to change and so on. And the big definition that everybody uses of sustainable development about, that wording, but providing for the needs of the present without compromising the needs of future generations to their needs. I usually show pictures of my children and grandchildren at that stage to show we need to consider the future. Okay, so one of the things we needed was not just the statement about what we want to do and what we believe in and so on, but also some sort of way that we can explain green IS to other people. And because it's sort of grown and it's emerged, we've got these very different topics that we cover. So I started to try and do an initial draft of how I could see we could have what green IS, the sort of taxonomy of things that green IS covers, just to explain to other people, not necessarily that we've touched the whole of it, but the sort of things that we could be part of this green IS. So we needed something to accompany the statement to explain green IS to people. Now people have been doing, there's quite a few good papers that have sort of surveyed the green IS literature and explained it, but looking at what people have published and explaining green IS that way is a sort of very academic way of doing things. I thought we'd, having been at, like Stefan, at all these events and read a lot of the literature and we write in the area, just to sort of try and go through the various areas that we cover. So that's one thing that I thought we could do, but we also need to look at other things that the SIG might do. One, I think, involves education. I think that's a very important area, how we can bring green IS into curricula. And we've tried to do that at our university, and because it's so multidisciplinary, you run into all the problems of who teaches what and who has the prerequisites for what topics. And so you think you might do an environmental degree that's multidisciplinary, but then it's very hard to manage that within most curricula because curricula are focused on disciplines, so you get a degree in environmental science or you get a degree in something. So I don't think you'd have a whole degree in green IS that didn't cover all sorts of other disciplines. So working out how it fits into the formal structures of most curricula is, I think, a bit of a challenge. So that's one. The other one that I think emerged today, how many people mentioned the greening of their own campuses? Sort of, you're talking about that's one thing we're looking at as well. And mean, that's one thing I think the SIG could do, is to look at, maybe get a collection of what's happening at, at our own institutions and what influence we can have there. So that, I think, could be something that the SIG could look at and exchange information. So curricula and what's happening at our own campuses, I think, are two things that we
maybe connect with whoever the sustainability officer is.
We did that at our university. And what was the group? You were talking about this university
sustainable campus meeting.
Yeah. So, and there's another group in the UK that's doing.
We also have similar work.
So,
and we have developed an MSc which is called Environmental Sustainability and Corporate Social Responsibility, and we have the green information and operations.
So I think if we can look at the greening of university campuses, and because we were doing something, and Rick Watson actually came to Wollongong and looked at some of the energy sensors we're using around campus that can be used to show who was using more energy than others, and have some visualise that back to people and change their behaviour. So I think that's another area of course.
But I've got an interesting story on the negative side, but those are useful cases as well, where we were the recipients of a decision made on information, but actually it was really interesting negative case around just heating. I was going to another time about it.
I think I've got a few negative stories about what happened in our side. But people were using because you couldn't change the thermostats on the air conditioners, so put you in the heaters on when we got too cold. Okay, so I might just flip through this, because this is what I like feedback on in my paper, so if anybody wants to comment on it. I'll just go through each page. One of the areas I think we're good at is managing and using information. So that's sort of one area. So, because one thing that the skeptics tell us is that, and a lot of the general public, getting the information in a form that's digestible about what's happening to the planet and what you can do that people understand, so that they can make sensible decisions when they go to the ballot box. So a lot of the projects that our government's trying to do are being thwarted by sort of misinformation, if you like, or misunderstandings of the public. So we're good at the idea of crowdsourcing, a whole lot of information gathering things we're good at. I'll just put it to this. The process management, changing human enterprises, but organisations, and the way they work, making what they do more efficient, incorporating the value of the green into what they do. Declan's work, that sort of work. I think that's a whole area. Decision support. I think the disaster management people are looking at the modelling, so that the scenarios, so that you can look at what will if we change things, how they impact on the way that sea rise might change the shape of a country, which countries are going under, which some of them are, some of the small Pacific islands are, we're looking at what's going to happen to whole populations of little countries. Bangladesh is one, I think, that there's a lot of concern if the sea levels rise, there'll be millions of people affected by that in Bangladesh and where they will go. So there's modelling, and that whole modelling area for decision support. The changing of attitudes and behaviours, the visualisation. I think that's the whole area that came up today. I think that's a very important one, and I think we're quite good at that, using the technology for advocacy and changing attitudes, that whole sort of social area. The commodity informatics, which Gilbert's paper when we got it, I was really stuck where to put energy informatics, because it seems to be such a narrow little thing, but when we look at, you could apply the same principles to other commodities. I don't know whether commodity is the right word, but energy, resources, fixed resources. So it could be fixed resource, whatever. I'd be really interested to get back. I'll send Rick an email to see if he minds sort of hijacking his idea and extending it. I'm sure he won't, but so I think that's a good one. The whole meeting thing. This is why I was fascinated by the Cisco system, and I've seen those lovely big systems, know how expensive they are. Whether we could get someone like that to sponsor SIGGreen by providing us with some technology to do really good, video conferencing would be wonderful, because those of you who've been involved in our trials, sometimes the technology works and sometimes it has its limitations when you try to do our virtual meetings around the world. What do you mean F?
Face-to-face.
Oh, sorry. And this mixture works really well because you get to know each other face to face. Then when you go online, the interaction's a lot richer once you've met people. Or conversely, if you've been involved on a discussion on a paper in the virtual conference, you get here and this is the second time we've seen a lot of these presentations, and you've got a bit more chance now to do some interaction. But the combination of the two, I think, works really well. Promoting the business case for SIGGreen. This is something that we're trying to do with the camp. I've got an ex-PhD student who's in Malaysia. She's doing a survey of students in Asia to see if their choice of university in Australia it would be affected by the green image of the university. Because if we can show that it is, we can go back to our university managers and say, look, this is good for business. Being green and being seen to be green is good for business. It's not an expense to put in water tanks. It's not an expense. It's you do this and you'll get more customers and attract more customers. So we think that's quite. There's the greenwashing. Everyone's seen the site greenwashing.com. Yeah. Well, this is sort of trying to fixing up that mess, if you like, and that green reputation. And then the last lot of things, the green IT part. I think IS can play a role in green IT. So when we were talking about that, some of the things that you were talking about, the information systems that can help IT become greener, and the whole life cycle of IT devices, which is sort of what John's work contributes to, and so on. The curriculum stuff, the green, finding people to sponsor green IS research, whether we need our own journal or whether we need, whether we can work out fora, because it's such a global issue, of combining some funding from the US with some funding from Europe, and whether people can provide matching funding, whether we can get industry sponsors, all those sorts of things. And the last one that came up in the virtual conference was IS and sustainable development, which is one of the big issues. They call the elephant in the room is the population increase, and that's got this issue of us Westerners have pillaged the polluting resources to develop. Do other developing countries have the right? They have a right to develop as well. We developed it through the use of coal and digging up and using resources. How is that whole global process managed as the population increases? And we wanted to get this universal access so that everybody has a right to develop, but we don't want to put it in the process. So that was an area. Okay, so that's one task that I'd like to sort of help going through Green IS, is to get a document of some sort that outlines these things that we could, you journalists might be, I think journalists are great, but somebody who can actually write up what I've just talked about and anything else that we want and other things, the way we want to word it, as a statement of what IS can do in the environmental for the consumption of everybody, not just writing it for MISQ, which is, so I think that's important. So we've got the statement that we've put out there ourselves. So anyone who's got any ideas about where that can go, and then how we supplement it with other things and what we can do. So I guess I open it up now for discussions on the future of the planet.
Would you want to go back to the SIGGreen statement?
The one you have seen the statement itself?
The two bullet points that you gave me there. This is the bullet point one. Let's have a look. That's the one. I like that, and when I read it, I agree with it. But then later on, I read this article in Harvard Business Review, which I can't remember. I put it up. I pasted it into the Illuminate session, and it actually characterised some of the polarity in this whole debate around two philosophies. One was this view that humans had, were responsible for devastation and destruction.
Constraining and opportunity.
Well, the other view is around human innovation. And I actually a lot of what you said later on in the bullet points is around building understanding and building, helping with designing some solutions. And I actually think that some of those things could come up at a level and just be summarised here, because potentially, obviously, all the people in this community probably like the second bullet point, but in terms of people outside of it, I wonder whether actually looking at human activities, human activity causes the problem, but perhaps human activity could also help with the solution, and this group can actually help
So
to
bring that into that
conceptual models and frameworks, theoretical understanding, and help with building some solutions.
What we can do for you.
Yeah, I think that would be good for
That's a very good point, rather than just beating it from about.
And this, one of the things I talk about is both mitigation and adaptation. And people think that adaptation is a very negative attitude, that you just like climate change is all happening, so you just need to adapt. So, but I think that's also where we can contribute. Because some of this is not going to be stopped. I think things have happened in our part of the world are pretty indicative that there are changes that we need to adapt to. But including the positive part right at the top, I think is probably
just to help to externalise it, to get the value of this work to recognise externally useful.
This has been recorded, is it, Catherine? Mm-hmm. We've got all this on record? Mm-hmm. Yes, good. If I scribble down, I have to go and use my writing afterwards. Okay, so having a look at the statement again from that point of view.
Michelle just ran out, but he would probably have some interesting. You've sort of been talking about that with me, about the idea, how do you present this problem? That's like, you're bad people using stuff versus your positive sharing.
So what we can do, maybe not to think of a mechanism for doing that from now on. It's good when you're face to face and can sit down and do it. And probably that's the way we got the statement in the first place, but it's only a group of people who sat around the table and actually wrote something. And then we sent it out and people made comments. And we've still got some of the other comments that we haven't incorporated in the system. Some of them are put up on the wiki, but maybe we can, maybe between now and ISIS, if people can collect all suggestions for the statement, and then maybe a group at ISIS could get together and get the wording right. Would that be a good idea? Because Rick Watson, you've got a panel, haven't you, at ISIS?
Yeah, actually there's going to be a panel on Green IS at ISIS. I'm not sure how many of you are going to that. There also is a track for SIGGreen at AMSIS. So we'll at least have a meeting at both of those conferences, a SIGGreen meeting. But actually, if we planned maybe to have a little bit of a
So I think it helps to have guidelines for change, not change this word to that word, because then someone will say no, I want the other word.
Yes. Right.
But if we can have some principles, just as the one we've been talking about here, which I think is good. Some guiding principles, and then get a group to sit down and do another draft of.
Right, and actually, if we could maybe just make it a page too.
Yes.
It's a page and a half.
Yes.
So.
Yes, it's sort of cool,
But I'm thinking about the guiding principles. So.
Then I think we can put a lot of things in an accompanying document.
We
can move some of it.
Yes.
What's not core to our mantra.
We can have an executive summary, and then the taxonomy could be
take more out. And something like the taxonomy we were talking about. So if as many of you possible can look at my paper that I put up and make comments on the wording of the, if anyone thinks that some of those categories miss something out, or if some of them actually should be combined or restructured in some way, I think that could be useful as well.
Maybe we should give ourselves organized tranche.
Yes. Okay, so
hold on a second. Are we done recording?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Catherine, you can turn it off.